Perfect timing.
Good time.
Um,
We just screwed up all the stuff, so we're like running 5 minutes late.
well, I've actually been there. It was like faded.
Oh,
Like the laptop's still not working, and so I'm trying it on the phone. And but
I like your angle right now.
well, now I
I
have
only
to
see your
I, I
curly
have
hair.
to I have to plug in my phone, and then the thing is on the bottom. And so if I do that, the thing's not on the bottom. How do you like that? Is that a good
That's
angle?
perfect.
It's perfect.
We are talking about your knees, so or we're
Well,
our knees, so we might as well go
I
that
think
way.
we should talk about Lionel Richie and dancing on the ceiling. That's what we should
Yeah,
talk
that's
about.
right.
I love it.
I love it. It's
That
gonna
would be
be good.
inspiring. And I took my tripod and stuff this weekend, so I have no idea where it is right this second. I know where my cat is though.
Hi, kitty.
Right
Kitty, kitty,
there.
kitty,
Oh my
kitty.
gosh, that's so cute. Is that where your cat like hangs out most of the time?
Wherever we are is where she hangs out. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We always laugh about that because oh yeah, about 8:45 or 9, you're gonna hear a whining corgi because she has some kind of timing on this like bone situation, and so I'm the sucker that gets pulled in
to give
to
her the treat.
give her the treat, and so she's the only one. I'm the only one that'll do that on her dime. They'll do it. They just she just runs my world, so it like makes me tick the amount of whining she'll do while we do that. But so yeah, so I'm excited to do this tonight. We're going to talk about what chiropractic can do for your knees, which I'm pretty excited about. So,
Yeah.
a couple of things as we go forward. I got a little experience in this. We'll talk about it, but we had the only real surgery I've ever had was in playing college football. I had this thing where your kneecap dislocates. And so we were playing, and my kneecap severely dislocated. And so I ended up, prior to knowing chiropractic, having to have the surgery on this one knee. I learned so much in that time frame afterwards, like just based on, oh, I had this like really intense physical therapist. Um, I think she made most people cry. Like as you go through, she did not take crap from anyone. She she was like, my favorite part of the whole thing was if I see that I'm going to give you these exercises, you're going to stand over there, and if I see you're not doing them, you can just leave. That's how she would respond. Like everyone was scared of her, right? So I thought that was and it put a challenge in my brain, like, ooh, I got to be like the number one student in this class, right? So I always constantly did all the stuff, and she still wasn't very. She just wasn't a happy person in general, so she didn't care. Like she didn't care if you did it or not. She was just like that's how she got things done for people. So I want to talk about that because knees is kind of a an interesting topic that a lot of people don't know that chiropractic can actually help with. We see that on a regular basis, and where a lot of people have many knee problems, but they don't know that there's a role that you can do other than, like physical therapy or surgery or, those kind of things prior to, like getting your knee better. And we see it on a regular basis. The problem is no one sometimes we don't even know to ask, right? So we'll be working on somebody's spine and those kind of things. And if they have a noticeable limp or something, then we may ask that, and say, hey, we can check that out. And a lot of times the knee is such an intricate joint. I always find it fascinating in how many triggers there is. So I have a really good couple videos that we could watch later. But I want to get all the inputs on everything. But one of the things that's unique about the knee, and it's very similar to the elbow, it has this giant fulcrum of pressure that it has to do so many things to make us, like walk forward, right? But in a weird way, there isn't a ton. I hate to say it like this. There isn't a ton of direct muscle, I guess you'd say, right? Like if you look at your shoulder, it's full of muscle all over the place, right? So you have all these different muscles that go in various different ways. The knee is kind of unique because it has these big muscles, right? and it uses these forces that are longer, right? So you have these longer forces on it based on the muscle. If you know, like from your rear end down the back of your legs are called the hamstrings, and then you have there's quite a few muscles in there, but in the front of your legs you have what, three quadricep muscles that everybody hears about, but you also have these ones in your groin, right? So all of them kind of do something involving the knee, right? So you have these huge muscle groups that attach there. And then not only that, you have all the muscles of the feet plus your, what is it, two or three big huge muscles in your calf. So all of these things have to work in coordination to have a perfect movement of this knee, right? So it's like it's a really big hinge, but it has these big huge muscles involved in that. So what it always shows us a lot of times, and Matt will say this a lot of times with, like most knee problems start somewhere else, and they reverberate, or the symptom is all in that knee. Now that's not necessarily all the time true, obviously, but there's a lot of times where these big muscles that are affected aren't working right, and that makes the joint itself not work great either. So Matt, you have anything on that?
Well, I liked your shoulder analogy there, because a shoulder, has a whole lot more range of motion and ability than a knee has, and that's why it's built the way it is. But the knee, and I like, just because I'm looking at my knee right now because I'm wearing shorts, and you just go, you can see your knee pretty darn well. The shoulder's covered up by a whole lot more stuff.
Exactly.
So it's like the long lever thing is definitely an interesting thought to share there. But I say this every time someone says, my shoulder, I'll look at their shoulder and adjust it if need be. But I say I always look at an elbow and a wrist, because you can't use your shoulder without your elbow and your wrist.
Correct.
Well, as you were just saying about the knee there. Well, it's worth taking a peek at the hip and taking a peek at the foot ankle when you look at a knee as well, because you can't use the knee without the foot, ankle, and the hip.
Right. Exactly. And in chiropractic, the mechanics of, like we've talked about this before, but the mechanics of the foot are so important. Like, so we'll start there first. The mechanics, understanding how those work, walking properly. One of mine was, and I'll tell you my experience with just my knee surgery. The reason my kneecap or patella shifted sideways was because I had a funny nickname in high school. I will not mention. However, I did walk a certain way that kind of had this thing that I would.
Would you call it a waddle?
I would consider it a waddle. Right. So because my feet actually.
And hang on. You're
out.
Canada, and they play hockey.
And I would push
what
off in football that way.
Hockey duck.
What? Listen. I don't want it from you. But that force that I was putting on turned, right, your patella, and it kept forcing it out the other side. One of the things I would, like before, if I would have known chiropractic back then, I would have probably said, hey, I need somebody to evaluate my feet, knees, and hips prior to that happening, right? So because the mechanics of my walk and my gait was I was way off. And because of that led to the knee problem that came up, right? So what happened in the physical therapy that I experienced with it was you learn to walk again. You learn to walk correctly, which was, and one day we'll go through that too. Heel hits the side of your foot, kind of rolls, and then you make like a C shape and you push off your big toe. That's really how you should land, but everything's straight, right? And so that takes a ton of muscle memory to understand how your knee is doing. And so we see it constantly. We get kind of lazy in the sense of how we're actually walking, right? And so the first recommendation we always have is train yourself to walk correctly, right? And this is where I love having Dr. Matt, because he's like an expert in a lot of different things. Like there's in the gait analysis, I think he has so many good inputs on this. But as that gait is going forward, if that is working, that knee takes so much less pressure on it that you can get away with a lot of that kind of thing. So a lot of the times the chiropractic is not only adjusting and making sure all the bones of the foot are working, but then you have to start training it, right? So you have to start training that new way, that new muscle memory, because whatever has happened to that foot, I guarantee somewhere else, because you have this long lever, right? So if you have this foot, the ankle joint working right, then the knee has a better chance to do what it's supposed to. So, Matt, you got anything on gait?
Well, yeah, but and you were mentioning about that postural thing, and one of the ways I always like to describe that is if there's instability, your body wants stability, so it moves to create a wider base. And I always use the football analogy of, if I got a 300-pounder in front of me and his feet are together, I might be able to push him over.
Right.
But if he's got his feet separated and his feet turned out, that base is so strong, I'm not moving that guy an inch.
Right.
And that's kind of what you're describing here. While that has a importance for stability when you are unstable, that's not a practical position to be in your entire life. And your body will adapt, your muscles will adapt. Certain things will shorten, certain things will lengthen. And that's like in the case of Amy, she'll probably see a whole lot of piriformis stuff, because as our body starts to favor that outside, the piriformis starts to contract. And it just adds insult to injury. It keeps that rotation to the outside.
Right.
And that's
Amy,
why it's important to work piriformis as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When he said that, reminds me. So when you're doing a massage, let's say on somebody's lower body, right, their lower extremities, where do you find is there balance usually in their legs? That's a better way.
No, I feel like everybody usually has one side that is, well, everybody has a dominant side that is their complaint usually, but typically both sides are tender. And I find if somebody's complaining about knee pain, I start there, but a lot of times I find that they have like really tight IT bands, and tight glutes, tight piriformis. And then I always go down to their feet and see, kind of where their feet are, and ask a bunch of questions like, hey, have you had your chiropractor check your knees? Have you had them check your feet? And they're like, well, my feet don't hurt. So I always just highly recommend having them check everything, because, everything is connected, and sometimes their knee pain is coming from somewhere else in their body. And so once you kind of explain that, and then, it's out of my scope of work. So I always say, ask your chiropractor to check that out for you. And then next time they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that could be adjusted. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that was the problem the whole time. They've been walking different gait. And so that screwed up, their muscle memory. And it takes a little bit to get it corrected, but it totally can be.
Now, Amy, you said a horrible couple words there. And the horrible words that you said were 2 letters in a word. That is
IT band.
Yes. IT band is when someone says the phrase runner's knee, it's really IT band syndrome is what it is.
Yeah.
You mind breaking down the IT band for people a little bit so they understand where it's at?
It starts, in layman's terms, starts at your hip. It goes down to the side of your knee. And everybody, if you feel your IT band, it feels tight for everybody down here. You're going to say, oh, mine's tight. Everybody's IT band is tight because it's fascia. So it's going to be tight. But until you start poking at it, you don't know that it's tight. And it's a really hard area to stretch too. There's like 2 stretches that, in my opinion, kind of stretch it,
Right.
So I do have one person that has me gua sha her IT band.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
has no government secrets because you would get them out of them.
Oh my gosh, that sounds terrible.
Well, but that's an interesting statement because the IT band is so I had an IT band thing. Actually, when I was at Palmer, I trained for the Quad City Half, which was awesome because you went into Illinois and back. It was really cool. But about, I don't know, 2-3 weeks out, all of a sudden I had this clicking going over my hip, and I had no idea what it was because it was my first semester of school. I didn't understand what was going on, and I just fought through it. And that's not recommended. But then when I figured out what it was, there are so many people that will say, use a foam roller. Don't use a foam roller. Get gua sha. Don't do gua sha. Do this stretch. That stretch doesn't do diddly squat. It's really a tough thing. But going back to Jeremy's original thought, is the best results I've ever seen with IT band is with adjusting extremity. And you want to make sure pelvis is clear because that's of course the foundational joint, but adding extremity adjustment with the pelvis.
Yeah, it's so
it's
cool.
Better than any soft tissue thing because all soft tissue stuff, yuck.
Right. And mechanically, it's like, so once you get all the joints right, so where the joints go, the muscles go, right? So muscles in our world are dumb, right? And that's the thing. They go where they're told to go. They protect what they're told to protect. So if you had a twisted ankle on your right side years ago, and the mechanics of that ankle aren't working right, then that's why your right knee, let's say, or your left knee starts hurting, right? So it's confusing. Well, the mechanics of everything have changed to make up for those. The muscles are constantly adapting you all the way up that chain. And so one of the things you can do that I love, I personally absolutely love it, is learn. You don't have to do a lot of this, by the way. Most of the stuff I'm going to recommend is like 10 minutes of stuff, but like maybe in the morning, something like that. But you're stretching all those lower extremity stuff that you can, and you can get on YouTube or talk to us about, different types of stretches. But understanding that you're going to have an issue with one knee or the other if you have imbalances that occur, right? So you have one side of what they call your butt muscle or your piriformis. That's typically one of the things, right? So you got glute, let's say one tight one and one loose one, right? So by noticing that and start working the tight one more often to make them even, you have a really good chance of starting to balance all that stuff. And that's where, like Amy will say, that when you work all those things, she's typically working on one muscle on one leg and a different muscle on the other leg, right? They're not the same. And the reason is adaptation. Your body is trying to adapt to all those mechanics that happen in there. And so I got this one little, it's like a 9-minute video. So I want to play it because he does a really good job of 5 exercises and kind of walks you through the muscles real quick. So if you guys are okay with that, I would like to do that real quick and then see if I remember. Oh, the cat says yes. We got this. All right, share screen. And then a tab. And then this one. And he does a pretty good job. So there's like 5 exercises at the end of it. So we'll kind of just run the whole thing and then stop and talk about it. Okay.
What's up, guys? Hey, Jared Beckstrand here, Doctor of Physical Therapy, ToneAndTighten.com. And these are the best exercises to strengthen and stabilize your knee. Part 1. Let's get into them right now. All right, you guys. Hey, thank you so much for joining me today here on Tone and Tighten. Let's talk about your knees today. I hope that what I share maybe helps you to feel better, helps you out of some of the pain that you might be experiencing. If you do like this video, do me a favor and like this video. Hit that thumbs up button down below. Also, if you haven't done so already, hit that red button in the corner to subscribe to Tone and Tighten right here on YouTube. Okay, so let's talk about knee pain. So I've been getting some requests from you guys lately. Some of the comments that you've been leaving in my video say, hey, my knees hurt. What can I do about my knee pain? What are some exercises for my knee pain, things of that nature. I thought that's a great topic for a video. Started writing down a few of my favorite exercises, and before I knew it, that list was like 12 exercises long. I decided to break that up into 2 parts. And so you kind of get phase 1 here. We're going to go over about 5 exercises, and then you get phase 2 in a later video that are a little bit more aggressive. So this is kind of the beginner phase 1. Hopefully you can progress into some of those phase 2 exercises. If you're looking for maybe a little bit more aggressive exercises, check the link down below for the link to that phase 2 video. So, okay, let's get into this. When we talk about the knee and when we talk about strengthening the knee, I tell people, you know, the knee is a pretty dumb joint. Like if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like your knee flexes and it extends, and that's about all that you get. And so really when we talk about strengthening the knee joint, we talk about quads. There's 4 quad muscles. We talk about the 3 hamstring muscles. And then you also get one of your calf muscles that actually crosses that knee joint that contributes to knee flexion. So really, it's those 3 muscles that we have to train. However, when we talk about stability of the knee joint and when we talk about where the knee joint is in space and the biomechanics of the knee joint and why your knee is painful, it's actually your hips and your ankles have more of a role in where your knee goes. For example, and I think you guys can see that. Let me check my camera here. So you couldn't see that. Quick camera angle change. And so while the knee only flexes and extends, it's actually the hip and the ankle joint that are going to control where that knee flexes and extends. So not only do we want to strengthen the knee joint, but we also want to strengthen and stabilize the hip and the ankle joints in order to put that knee in a better alignment. So we're going to look at the muscles of the knee, quads, hamstrings, and then some hip strengthening as well. I've got 5. They're coming your way right now. Our first exercise is fairly simple, but very important. It's an isometric contraction of the quads, or a quad set. Simply put, you're going to sit with your leg out straight in front of you, and then you're going to contract your quad muscle. So this one right here. If I fire that, I hope you guys can see that, and then if I relax it. What I tell people is, as you're sitting, try to push your knee down into the floor, down into the mat, whatever it is that you're sitting on. So you're going to fire that quad, push, 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 hold for about a 3 to 5 second count, and then relax. It's a really simple exercise, but it's really important. More of like a neural component to it, basically establishing a mind-muscle connection to that muscle so that we can fire it voluntarily as needed. So that's exercise number 1, quad set. So I'll typically tell people to perform about 10 reps of about 3 to 5 second holds. If that feels good, feel free to do 20. If that still feels good, do 30. So up to 3 sets of 10, 5-second holds on that quad set. Next one, we're going to take that a step further. So that's a great way to fire the quad. One of those quads, well, a part of one of those quads, serves to flex the hip. And so we add hip flexion to that quad set to make that contraction even better. And so that's going to be a straight leg raise. Your first step is to perform that quad set. So hit that quad set, contract that quad, knee goes down into the floor. And then what you're going to do helps to sit back just a little bit. So quad set, and then we're going to raise that leg, about a foot or so, about maybe 12 inches up off the table, and then right back down. And so quad set, so we're going to fire that, raise about 12 inches, and then right back down. You've got to be able to maintain that quad contraction. So meaning I want your knee to be as straight as possible. Sometimes people will do this, they have what they call a lag to it. So they'll start to raise and then the leg will come up. You'll see that that's a lot different. I want you to set that quad, fire that, and then I want you to lift that whole straight leg raise up off the table. So fire it, lift the whole leg up, and then right back down. Same thing applies here. Shoot for 10. If 10 feels good, 2 sets of 10 and even up to 3 sets of 10 on these straight leg raises will be good. Okay, cool. Next, let's introduce a little bit of bend into the knee. To do that, I'm going to perform what we call a short arc quad. I've got a foam roll here under my knee. If you have a foam roll, that works great. If not, you can double up a pillow or a blanket or a towel or things like that. Just to slip underneath your knee, all work well. So there's a little bit of bend in my knee, 10, maybe 15 degrees. Now what I'm going to do is fire that quad muscle to straighten my leg out. You'll notice that my knee did not come up off of the foam roll. Basically, I'm just using these quad muscles to straighten my knee from that short arc, or from that 10 to 15 degrees of flexion all the way to straight. So it's this small motion, but your focus is right here on that quad muscle, getting that to fire, getting that to contract. Nice and slow up, nice and slow down. You're going to do a set of 10 of those. If one set of 10 feels good, do 20. If that feels good, up to about 30 reps on that one. If you need more of a challenge, you can always put a small ankle weight on the end of down on your ankle, or perform more repetitions. And so there's your short arc quads. Next, so we've done a lot for your quad, let's get into your hamstrings and your hips. To do that, I like to do bridges, so I'm going to slide right down here. Lay on your back with your knees bent. Now what we're going to do is contract the glutes, contract the hamstrings to lift our hips up towards the ceiling. So I'm laying down flat, glutes squeeze, hamstrings contract, hold 2, 3, and then come right back down. So up, hold for about a 3-second count, and then come right back down. The focus, again, is smashing my butt together and squeezing my hamstring muscles while I'm up in this bridge. Perform 10 of them. If 10 feels good, we'll go up to 20, up to 30. So up to about 3 sets of 10. When that becomes easy, the maybe slightly more advanced version of this would be to get into even some single leg bridges. I'm going to extend my left leg out, and now I'm just using my right hip and my right hamstring to lift my hips up off of the ground, to lift my pelvis up off of the ground. A little bit more aggressive, requires a little bit more muscle control, a little bit more muscle contraction. It might be something that you have to work up into, but that's a great way to get the glutes and the hamstrings firing up to 3 sets of 10 on those bridges. Finally, we talked at the beginning of the video about hip strength and its role in stabilizing the knee. And so one of the primary muscle groups that I want to strengthen are those lateral hip muscles, or the hip abductors. To do that, you're going to lay down on your side. Right now I'm on my left side to work my right leg. Left leg is bent, right leg is out straight. From this position, what I'm going to do is contract the muscles kind of behind my hip, right here, like right on the side of my glutes, to raise that leg up towards the ceiling and then right back down. So it looks just like that. I tell people to lead with your heel, and so if you're leading with your toe, you're probably contracting the wrong muscle. Try to lead with your heel, and then don't just pull it straight up, but pull it up and back behind you. So it actually looks a little bit more like that. I'm pulling up and back as I'm performing that leg lift to the side. Again, that's called a side lying abduction. I tell people perform 10 of those. 10 feels good, perform 2 sets. And if 2 sets of 10 feels good, perform 3 sets of 10 on that one. All right, you guys, so there you have them, 5 great exercises to strengthen and start to stabilize that knee joint. Again, this is kind of phase 1 for beginners. If you're looking for more exercises, be sure to click.
All right, so cool. Hi, Sadie. How you doing?
Sadie, there's my kitty cat. She's snoring.
There's
Do you hear her?
There's a kitty.
She's very cute, but she's snoring right now.
That's so cute.
So, that straight leg raise, the
So
second
that
one,
was
that's no joke. That's a hard exercise.
yeah, that's the thing.
I'm
like,
surprised
a lot
his
of
beginner exercise, he showed that, and then when he showed the bridge single leg, I'm like, that's stupid. Like that looks that does not look fun at all.
No,
like,
that does not.
Sorry, Sadie, for saying the S word.
Yes, and those hurt. Those hurt. It's very interesting as they go, though. You can see the idea of, imagine this, though, and this is one part that I always love about what we do is, imagine if all those if you know for a fact that you got that foot adjusted, that knee adjusted, that hip adjusted on the way. So like making sure that that's a part of that workout right there, that could do so much for you. And understanding how he switched the legs too, like where you had one leg going the other way, now you can feel the difference in the imbalance that would occur there. So I really, really like those. And it's simple. Like you can do that on your bed at your house, like what, 5-10 minutes?
I like, because when it comes to strength and stability, it's not about, people want to, they would look at that and they would go, oh, if I jump on the quad machine at Planet Fitness, I'm doing the same thing. And it's like, no, that isolation, that isometric contraction is a whole lot harder to do, but it's stabilizing so much more.
Exactly. And that's that's to me, that's the coolest part, because when you go into a gym and you want the performance of that joint to be at a different level, you're going for a different reason, right? So we're trying to strengthen our body, trying to do things, not necessarily fix, like a condition that's currently there. That one that you just saw, and I'll keep it on, our Facebook and like our YouTube thing, when you learn those exercises, those are things you can do every day that has something to do with improving the function of the joint, which is much different than the trying to strengthen your quads to make them look better or performance, right? So that is the difference. And most people do that. They'll go, okay, my knee hurts, so let's go in and start working out my legs, which I love that. The concept is great, right? But that's the idea is there's so much to making sure it's right. It's kind of like me and golf right now. Like my youngest loves golf, so we go out. I don't know. She's kind of hitting me up. She's like, Dad, we keep going out all the time. Like I think you're over golfing. I was like, I would never do that. I'm not forcing you out on the golf course. I don't know. I thought you said you liked it, so I just went crazy every day. So a lot of times, but understanding that muscle memory to go through, it's so much easier to know how to swing first and then do the performance, right? So if you know your body is going to actually go through with it, or that knee is going to be, just having those confidence in that. And that's one reason, and I'll give this one to either of you two too. One of the reasons I absolutely love working on young athletes a lot of times, because when you get the chance, and I try to recommend every athlete get adjusted, checked out. All of us do, right? But we would love to check every single stinking athlete that we ever came across, because for their feet, knees, hips, all the way up, because the mechanics and being so early, you have a lot of good opportunity to not have that degenerative arthritis show up, the meniscus tear, the ACL. Why is the ACL so common in sports? This has always been the interesting thing. There's always a knee injury. Like almost everybody that's ever played a sport can raise their hand and say, I know somebody that blew out their ACL. Why? Yeah. Think about that.
It's part of the stop mechanism, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes. So the mechanics are wrong in that person's leg, right? Somewhere. Now, how does an ACL happen? Most of the time, they didn't have knee pain prior to the ACL blowing, right? But they probably did the same cut or the same move on the other knee at some point, right? Why? Imbalance and understanding the mechanics of the one knee. It's a fascinating thing, but when does it happen? Usually in the youth sport situation, right? So, and if we're learning mechanics incorrectly, but we're constantly doing that same sport, what does occur? People think that the ACL joint just naturally gives out on one knee versus the other. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So that is a hard.
And you said something important too. Is unless football traumatically hit into the knee, but generally speaking, an ACL is going to be a repetitive stress injury. It was brewing, and then it just goes kaput.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like you can say, sometimes you can see it. Okay, this guy tackled me into this guy, and that's where it torqued. Explain to me how the soccer kid that makes a cut all of a sudden has an ACL that blows, right? Mm-hmm. That is automatically like why you have, and I know one of our 7 viewers possibly could be Tiger Woods. So
totally.
I'm just throwing the name out there because so his career, I've always
to say he's at Denny's right now looking for a date. Is it too soon to say that?
So he's so that was funny. That was good. I like that. That's it. But anyway, so one of the things that we constantly watch this amazing athlete like swinging a golf club, right from the beginning. He's about my age, so that's why I've always watched his career and watched this amazing performance. One of the things that used to drive me crazy though was as he's torquing and he starts getting injured, right? So he started having knee pain. A lot of people I would watch the history of him. I'm like going, people, it's his mechanics of his feet. And I didn't know how to tweet or do anything and try to find him. Because I go, Tiger, it's your feet mechanics. It's been your feet mechanics the whole time. And so what happened to him was maybe his feet didn't bother him, but the torque that he was swinging with such a velocity created this knee problem, right? So in professional sports, it's much, sometimes it's almost grotesque, honestly, but they get in knee injections, right, to fix the knee pain. No mechanics were happening. Well, then his knee becomes so weak from these knee injections that it breaks. It literally breaks. Like he has a broken knee from like because the amount of torque this guy has in his swing, right? So that was his first injury that led to, guess what? A low back problem, right? So now he has these low back disc problems all the time. All these situations start happening, and I'm going, oh my God, it's his knee. Like one guy that's going to win all this stuff. And I'm sorry, his foot. It's his foot. I was like going, fix his feet and all the way up, get the chain right. Like that's what we always talk about in chiropractic is if that knee is there, we may not even look at it. But the neat thing about chiropractic too, a lot of times, if it is the knee, which it can be, it's because the mechanics of that knee have to work perfect, right? And that fulcrum, very easy adjustment on it. It's like not even it's so easy to do, but it's all about making sure it's all perfect. And then people notice a big difference most of the time on the knee, especially. I know Matt gets the same thing. There's a lot of little nice moves to fix the mechanics of there, but usually almost guaranteed we're either adjusting your hip or adjusting your foot with that knee. There's never a time where it's just the knee and then everything's good, right? So that's pretty typical. So you guys got anything on that?
Would you say that, so let's say somebody that works out on a regular basis, and even if they're strong, maybe they do a lot of like squats and lunges and things like that. So in addition to what they're already doing, should they be doing those exercises that we just watched just to strengthen it? And
Great
same
question.
with like runners, people that run all the time too, and right, every day or whatever, should they be doing those specific things to strengthen their knee?
Yes. So that is an awesome question. There's two parts I would say. Those knee exercises would be an excellent thing to do, maybe prior to them going to the workout that they're going to do. So that's number one. Number two is fixing the mechanics of your gait, right? So learning to walk with what I talked about, and we'll have another video on this, of course, but heel, side of the foot, toe off, right? So how I gained in and never really had major knee anything after the knee surgery and all the therapies was learning to walk correctly. When I started to be able to walk correctly, then when I go to work out, my performance actually increased. See what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when you work on the mechanics and the biomechanics, muscle memory wise, that performance in a run, you're not going to fix any mechanics. You're just not. There's no way you can do it unless you're sacrificing your performance, right? So unless you're saying, all right, I'm going to back way off on the mileage I want to go or the distance and the time, you're not in that mode at that point. So it's really hard. You want to trust those mechanics as you take off, right? So that's the beauty for me is saying, okay, you almost, in a sense, that's why I like you to not work out trying to do these things. Like the ones that he showed, like Matt was saying, those are some hard ones to do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
don't think of them as a workout necessarily.
Right.
Don't
Right.
do enough to like wear you out for the true workout. But hopefully we'll start seeing those gait and all those kind of things. Some of our best people are looking, when you look at like a trainer or something, they're looking at the gait and the way you do things prior to the performance, because if you get it down in the beginning, you always do better at the end, right? That's why a golf coach, I keep going back to golf. I don't know why. It's gorgeous out. I don't know. So the golf coach wants the kid when he's young to get the club in his hand. They don't want to wait till you've had this terrible mechanics and now he has to fix that. Why? Because muscle memory stays with you a really long time. So this is stuff, fixing your gait, fixing your walk, doing all those kind of things is a everyday process. Like once that starts feeding in and you actually feel the control, right? And that's where I love Matt has always been my barefoot guy. Like I've loved the concepts he studies on just the barefoot walking, the barefoot running, grounding, all these different things. The reason that barefoot, it forces your mechanics to actually work correctly. Am I right on that a little bit?
Well, you can't do poor mechanics because it hurts too much.
Right.
You have to do good mechanics, and you just naturally fall into it. It was interesting. It's just a thought went through my head, and I guess I never even fully expressed it this way, but just when Amy was making the point about working out, is when the mechanics are off, you've already started the end game. The end game is it's going to bust at some point. And there's this misnomer, and I hear it from people, this misnomer that, runners have more knee problems. It's not that necessarily runners have more knee problems. It's that if you only get, let's say, 1 million steps, well, runners get those 1 million steps quicker with those poor mechanics. And yes, they do put a little bit more impact, but it's not an excessive impact. People run all over the place and all the time. But it's that bigger thing is if the mechanics is off, it's really not that big a deal. But it's like us going up into Yosemite and going 1 degree off the trail. That's really not that big a deal for 20 steps. But if we go 2,000 steps, 1 degree off the trail in Yosemite, next to kin, alert them because you're not getting back.
Might end up in Canada. That's how that goes. But it's true, like those things. And here's the thing that's so tricky about working out. And this is what I believe. The working out allows you to build muscle that allows you to adapt better, right? So as you adapt better, now your bad mechanics are now adapted better. Does that make sense? So now you're stronger in your crappy mechanics. So see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's so now you have huge muscle mass. It's all working good, but it's all not it's imbalanced, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's imbalanced in the most dangerous way possible. You have now asked your big mover muscles to be stability muscles, and that's not their job.
Mm-hmm.
But you've asked them to do that. So and just from a sheer, if you don't use it, you lose it. Your stability muscles actually get weaker because now the big mover muscles is doing their job. And that's where we then blow out an ACL or something like that, is because we've compensated around it with the big mover muscles, which they have a job. It's not stability. That's not their primary job.
Exactly.
So do you think if someone is exercising and strength training and stuff, they should record themselves so that they can see if they have proper mechanics, or bring it to you and have you see if they're
I love that idea. I think it's a start. I mean, as soon as you start looking at your own self at first, see how you're doing, right? And then see
with
how
a
you
filter
are compared
on Instagram. That's what I want to know, because I got to make it right.
Yeah, put it on Instagram. All right, wait.
Just a little sweat working out here. I got to make sure I shine.
Yes, you don't have to start a whole exercise.
My matching outfit.
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing is like you will notice like one side to the other, especially hopefully we got your eyes perked up in your ear, like you're looking at those different things, like breaking down your own stuff. I tell people to go for a walk, and then so let's say you have a couple. So one walks ahead, one walks behind for just a little bit or whatever, right? And then the one is videoing the one in front and seeing, right? The amount of people, especially the wives, they pick up that stuff all the time. But as they can see like how you're walking. Why are you favoring this one knee? Why are you favoring this? Right? So then switch it so that the husband's behind, or however that works. So as they're walking, you do that, right?
Yeah.
Because we do it with one. We observe that with one population. We all do it. It's sports, kids sports. We see it all the time. And so whether it's just my brain goes immediately to, something's wrong with my kid's like foot, or this year in softball, my oldest had a back thing, and you could see like she'd pitch and it'd go good, and then one last impact, and you knew that was the one that got her, right? She would never show the emotion, but you could see the mechanics change, right? And so those are things that we're observant too. It's usually in our kids, but we're not observant really well with us personally. Like our own person, we never look at our own mechanics, and so that is a really big deal, right? So, and
well, an old runner's trick, you're looking at videos, have them walk a line too when you do it.
Yeah,
is if you go to like a parking lot, you just take a line and just say just walk. You can see, because it's just like the posture thing we have in room 5. You can see, because that line is straight, and you can see what you're doing in conjunction in relation to that line, and that's a really good tell for what's not going well.
Yeah, it is it's so cool. Well, I think we did good tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to keep us too long, because I want to kind of keep these short and concise. Not a lot of questions tonight. I didn't think so.
No.
Like 70 and perfect out. I wouldn't expect too many people to be like jumping on a computer too much. So, but you guys have any final thoughts? All right. Next week, or no, next month, we're going to come up. We'll do a much better job of advertising these.
Yeah,
so,
ahead of time.
I promise we will do a better job. We'll come up with some cool topics too, like not just mechanics of different joints, but I was thinking sinuses would be a good one.
Yeah.
Just little kind of things like that. That'd be it.
We got a lot of people on with sinuses back in March and April.
I know. Maybe we'll wait till then.
Coming in March and April, because the weather was doing this, and so their sinuses were going crazy.
Oh man, they had so many issues that way, headaches, all that stuff. But so this will be good. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Hopefully we will get it going. So I appreciate you guys jumping on as well. So
no problem.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yes, you too.
Peace out.
See you. Bye.